a bit about yourself?
Yes, so as I said, my name is Ian. I'm Ian Rofe. I was born in England and I lived in England until I was 21. And then I came to work in France. I have lived in France for for about 30 years. Now I am 52. And I have lived a little bit in America, in Canada, and in Central America as well. And I have traveled in quite a few countries in Europe. But France is the country where I have worked most of my life. I'm now married to somebody to a French person, and we have 3 children who have grown up in France. They speak English and French because I speak to them in English and my wife speaks to them in French. What else can I say? I think I have all my leisure activities now are in France. So I sail in the Gulf of the Morbihan, and I cycle, and I do some Breton dancing as well.
Why did you want to work abroad?
I travelled on holiday with my parents when I was young, and I have always enjoyed travelling. So when I was 20, I thought I would like to work abroad, and I think at the time I thought I would spend my life in England, and working abroad was an experience to travel, to discover other countries.
How did you find the job?
My first job in France was working on a farm, and I had a French pen friend when I was 14 or 15. So I went to stay with his parents, and I put an advertisement in the newspaper, and I had studied agriculture in England, so I put an advertisement in a farming newspaper to say that I was looking for a job to learn about farming in France.
Did your family and friends support your desire to work in a foreign European country?
My father thought it would be... he thought it was a good thing to work abroad, but he wanted me to study more before I worked abroad. My mother thought that it was a very good thing, and yes, I think my friends as well thought it was a good thing.
Why did you choose your home country?
Because I had learnt French at school, so it was the only foreign country where I could work easily and at least be able to talk a bit to people.
And did you have a specific reason for choosing our country?
Because of the language. But it could have been, I could have gone to a different country if I had spoken other languages.
Thank you.
Is our country different from your country? If yes, in what?
I think that there are fewer and fewer differences really between countries like France and England, because the economy is a world economy, a globalized economy. But there are differences. People in England will travel perhaps more easily, whereas in France there is more of the idea of a local culture, so people find it perhaps more difficult to go to a foreign country. People don't always want to travel a long distance to go to another town to work, and I think the English have, through their history, the English have developed a different opinion of this. At the same time, people are, in many ways, people are very similar. There are not so many differences, but in France you will have areas like Brittany with a very strong local culture. There are differences. Sometimes they are quite important differences. Sometimes there are things which are very which are limited to a specific group of people. I went back to university when I was 32 in France to become an English teacher. And the idea in France that you should read just a text, a short text from a book, and that you can make a complete presentation with a detailed analysis, this is perhaps something which is, it's specific to the university culture in France. It's not general to all French people, and a lot of French people have difficulty with these commentaries on a text. But it is a way of thinking in France which is perhaps different, thinking about literature, thinking about the meaning of a text, which is perhaps different from the way other countries think about this. And a university teacher in France told me she went to America and it opened her eyes on a different way of looking at books, looking at literature, because she realized that the French way was not the only way of doing it. So there are things where there is it has quite a limited impact, but they are different ways of thinking.
Have you also studied or did you take part in an internship in our country before working here?
I have studied in France, two different things. I did not take part in an internship. I came to France and I worked on a farm, but it was a farm, so the idea of a stagiaire agricole, okay, so a student working on a farm, was very, very strong at the time, and so it was a kind of internship. I was not paid. They gave me some money and they gave me food and a place to sleep, but I was not paid the minimum wage. So it was like an internship in a way, but I was not from a school. I was working because I wanted to work here.
Did unknown culture and foreign language make you work harder?
I had to work to learn better French. I spoke French that I had learnt at school. So I had to discover and learn lots and lots of expressions and new things, but because I was living in France all the time, and because I was talking to people who knew that I was English, everybody helped me to learn French. I was working for some people who were quite poor, so it was a different family culture from the culture I grew up in. My parents had a job, they had their own house, they did not lack money. They were not rich people, but they had enough to live. So I discovered new ways of living, and you have to learn to adapt to that. And perhaps the most valuable thing I have learnt is more how to adapt to different people.
Could you make friends and relationship for your future work?
Well, because I work as a teacher now, sometimes my colleagues change. I have new colleagues, so I am always meeting new people. So yes, there are, I have to always adapt to new people. I have to make new relationships with people. And because I am asked sometimes to do different things in my work, like teaching English to adults, I have to adapt again to different relationships and different contexts in teaching. Difficult when the situation is difficult, because you cannot share, you cannot talk to somebody. But if if you are open and you go to other people and you say, hello, my name is, and you start to talk, because you are one person, they can say, well, come in, have a cup of coffee, have a drink, have a meal with us, and it is easy for them. And then if you are open-minded, you can talk to people, you can get to know people. So you have to want to go abroad, you have to want to discover other things, you have to accept that you will lose some things and gain others, and then you have to think about, well, being by yourself, sometimes perhaps being very lonely, but also all the good things that you can find. And I would say to everybody, you should work abroad, but I don't think everybody can do it.
Will you recommend to friends to work in a foreign country?
Yes, I am an English teacher here, so professionally I recommend my pupils and my colleagues to travel in other countries. In my family, a lot of people have travelled, and I have travelled a lot. My sister lives in Singapore now. My children are bilingual from when they were babies, so we have always encouraged them to travel. My youngest daughter now is in England with her grandmother. My older daughter is living in Italy with her boyfriend, and she's learning Italian, and she's hoping to get a job in Italy. And she has lived in Ireland because she participated in an Erasmus project, and she did a master's degree in England. My son, between his baccalaureate and the start of his studies, travelled for nearly a year in Australia with his girlfriend. So in my family, I recommend people to travel, and I recommend to everybody to travel, to discover other countries. We live, as I said, in a worldwide economy, so it's very important, I think, for people to travel and to learn about other countries, to learn a bit, at least, of other languages, and to discover other people, to know more about other people. So yes, for me it's very, very important for people to travel.
So thank you for the interview. It was great to learn about your experience, and I am glad that we could organize this meeting.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.